Even when you're not a fan of basketball, if you hear the name Michael Jordan, you immediately know who that is. Even if you know absolutely nothing about his countless achievements or about the family tragedy that caused him to fall from the top of the world to the depths of devastation. So stay with me to find out about the story of the massive success and loss in the life of the great Michael Jordan, the man who won everything that there was to win and even challenged the laws of physics by literally flying over the court. By the way, have you subscribed to Curiosips? If not, it's never too late. So please, do it right now because believe me, you don't want to miss any of our videos, including this one. Now let's start. A basketball player, a baseball player, a golfer, an actor, a businessman, and in short, a childhood idol of millions. That's Michael Jeffrey Jordan, the giant who's 6'6" and who just celebrated his 57th birthday. He was born to Dolores and James Jordan on February 17, 1963 in Brooklyn, New York. But despite being born in the Big Apple, Michael grew up in Wilmington, North Carolina. He developed a huge interest in sports at a very young age, mainly thanks to his father because the two had a very close bond. So because Jordan Sr. was such a huge fan of baseball that he even went semi-pro, he wanted his son to become a baseball star. This was actually the first sport that James taught Michael to play. Fortunately, Michael leaned more towards basketball and spent his time practicing shots and various moves on his own court that his dad James built so that his child would never stop dreaming of becoming the best. Precisely because of all those years and because of everything he shared and learned with and thanks to his father, Michael's heart broke into 1,000 pieces in the summer of '93, when he already was 30 years old. But before talking about the most heartbreaking episode in the life of the man who is considered by many to be one of the greatest of all time in the history of the NBA, let's talk about the reason for those honors. Look, I'm not going to make it too long, but even if you know nothing about basketball, the number of achievements this man has will make your jaw drop, especially the numbers in his bank account. Michael Jordan is the most awarded player in history. 10 of those awards are top scorer titles. In addition, I obviously have to mention his 5 titles of MVP of the season and 6 titles of the NBA Finals MVP. He was selected 14 times for the NBA All-Star Games and won the NBA Championship 6 times. That's a lot, right? And he also stopped playing for 3 periods throughout his career. He retired that same number of times from playing basketball. One of those times was to keep a promise that he made to his father to play professional baseball at least once. Because of that, those who know that sport and are familiar with the statistics say that nobody would have matched Jordan's achievements. Wait, I almost forgot his 2 Olympic gold medals. One from Los Angeles in 1984 and the other from Barcelona in 1992. If you're still not impressed, let's see if the following numbers will correspond to his career as an entrepreneur and his advertising deals, because he had more than a few of them. And it's that even though in 1984 he had already signed a $2.5 million contract with Nike, which was quite unusual back then, it was undoubtedly his own brand, the iconic Air Jordan, that brought him the biggest success. To give you an idea of how massive it was, at some point Jordan's brand contributed to 90% of the sales of all sports shoes in the United States. That is, 9 out of 10 people who went to a store to buy a pair of sports shoes chose Air Jordans. Can you imagine how people looked at those sad leftovers when they arrived at the store and had to try on another brand? How shameful! The Air Jordan brand made $480 million in 12 years. And another $100 million annually from 2013 to date. And I haven't even mentioned the $230 million that Jordan earned by starring in the movie Space Jam in 1996, nor the multiple advertising campaigns for brands such as Chevrolet, McDonald's, Gatorade, and Coca-Cola, or his ownership of NBA teams, but I better stop there. Well, Jordan was basically the first billionaire player in NBA history. Now I will tell you about what everyone likes best: scandals. But when it comes to that, there aren't that many in the almost immaculate life of Michael Jordan. Perhaps after the horrible family tragedy that I'll tell you about in a second, the most famous event in the life of the basketball player was his expensive divorce from his ex-wife Juanita Vanoy. And it's that after 17 years of marriage and having 3 children together, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine, in December 2006 they decided to go their separate ways. But because big money was involved, they reached a mutual agreement that she would get $168 million and the custody of their children. At the time, it was the largest celebrity divorce settlement on public record. But it seems that Michael was convinced that true love does exist. That's why he gave it a second try when he got married again, but this time to the Cuban model Yvette Prieto. In addition, after 22 years, Michael went back to sleepless nights and changing diapers, because in February 2014, he and his wife welcomed twin daughters, Victoria and Isabel. This man has to have a lot of stamina. Anyway, speaking of the kids of the former basketball player, his sons from his first marriage, Jeffrey and Marcus, share the same passion and have their father's talent because they're both professional basketball players. But looking at Michael's achievements, the truth is that the bar is set very high for them. And since we came back to the topic of fatherhood, unfortunately now we've reached the most heartbreaking and dark episode of Michael's life. It's that on July 23, 1993, his father was killed by a couple of teenagers while driving from Charlotte to Wilmington in North Carolina. However, the Jordan family learned of James' death 11 days after he had been reported missing. His body was found in a swamp in McCall in the neighboring state of South Carolina. I won't go into too many details. All I can tell you is that while the 2 boys were trying to rob him, things got out of control and the 2 criminals shot Jordan Sr. while he was asleep in his car. Those responsible for the crime were Larry Demery and Daniel Green, both young people who had just passed their adolescence. After they were convicted, Demery stated that his friend, who suddenly felt intimidated and terrified, pulled the trigger for no reason. Both boys were sentenced to life imprisonment for first-degree murder and other violent crimes. However, just over a year ago, in December 2018, Green made headlines again when his lawyers announced that they had proof that he was innocent. I'm assuming that it was neither the NBA championship rings nor the gold watch that Michael had given to his father that Green later showed off while rapping in a cynical and heartless video recorded after the brutal crime. By the way, according to the reports, Green himself admitted to taking part in the crime and only helping in disposing of James Jordan's body. But what's more, Daniel Green admitted to stealing those valuable possessions from James, more for the sentimental value rather than to monetize on it. So what evidence did his lawyers refer to when they said that they had sufficient arguments to prove their client's innocence? Well, according to this new version, Daniel wasn't even at the scene of the crime when it happened. Apparently, he had arrived sometime later, when his friend Larry had already taken the life of the father of the basketball legend after he supposedly confused him with an illegal substance dealer. In a statement under the appeal, Daniel said the following: "I had nothing to do with this man losing his life, period. I wasn't connected to the murder. I came in after he was already dead. The way I look at it is, I denied his family the right to a proper burial because of what I did." When Oprah Winfrey asked Michael Jordan during an interview if he felt the need to meet those who were responsible for his father's death face to face and ask them why they did it, he replied, "No, because I don't want to know. Because it will probably hurt me even more just to know their reasons. Because if they exist, it's going to be totally meaningless. It's better that I don't know." I don't know about you, but to me, just telling you about this cruel and devastating event gave me goosebumps. How difficult and painful it must have been, and must still be for Michael to have to live with the fact that his father was taken way too soon in such a cowardly and heartless way. Do you agree? By the way, did you know about that dark part of Jordan's family history? Tell us what you think of the life of one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And of course, if you liked this video, don't forget to leave your likes and share it with all your people. And remember to subscribe to our channel and check all our content that you will surely love. Until next time.